The moment Taehyung saw her, the woman standing beside Jungkook, hand intertwined with his, the world seemed to tilt. The stage lights from the award show backstage still glimmered faintly across the polished floor, but in that moment nothing else mattered. Time slowed, air thickened in Taehyung's chest, and the laughter and clinking glasses from the main hall faded into a distant echo, as if the universe itself had muted everything but the sharp, searing ache in his heart. She wasn't supposed to be here. Not yet, not in his imagination. And yet there she was, smiling at Jungkook as if the past, as if all the unspoken words and missed chances had never existed. Taehyung's voice trembled, fragile like glass ready to shatter. "You brought her here," he said, eyes locked on the scene unfolding before him. Jungkook blinked, confused, unaware of the storm raging in the depths of Taehyung's gaze. Silence screamed between them, a taut rope straining against unseen hands. I thought maybe it's been hard lately." Jungkook's voice was soft, almost apologetic, but it was far too little, far too late. Memories flooded Taehyung, shared laughter backstage, fleeting touches, glances that spoke more than words ever could, and nights where they lay awake in silence, afraid to cross the line that their hearts had already circled. Every memory now felt mocked, twisted into a cruel shadow by the reality before him. The woman beside Jungkook was everything he had never imagined, a perfection too deliberate, a smile too pristine. It was an image polished to the point of impossibility, and it detonated in his chest. He stepped back, needed air, and fled. The door slammed behind him as he navigated the chaos of stylists and staff, the fake smiles and quiet confusion trailing him like ghosts. Only when he reached the alley outside did the cold slap of night hit him, grounding him, yet offering no comfort. His hands shook. Was this betrayal, or the collapse of a dream he had foolishly allowed himself to nurture? Months of convincing himself he'd moved on seemed laughable now. He had dated, smiled for interviews, and convinced himself that Jungkook was a closed chapter. Yet the truth, stubborn and unyielding, was that he had never stopped seeing Jungkook in his mind's eye, the way his laughter hit mid-song, the lingering gaze that always found Taehyung, the hoodie he once woke up under, wrapping him in secret warmth. None of that had prepared him for this. And the sting wasn't merely because Jungkook loved someone else. It was because he hadn't told Taehyung, hadn't acknowledged what had always been there. Footsteps echoed, pulling him back from the edge of his spiraling thoughts. It was Jungkook, or rather it was Namjoon, cautious and measured. "You okay?" Namjoon asked, eyes searching, hands in pockets. Taehyung nodded too quickly, muttering something about needing air. Namjoon didn't buy it, he had seen her too. "It wasn't supposed to happen tonight," Namjoon said softly. "Then why?" Taehyung snapped, bitter truth lacing his words. "Why would he do this knowing?" Namjoon stepped closer, voice gentle. "He didn't know you'd react like this." Taehyung laughed hollow, a sound that felt like broken glass. "He doesn't know the whole story." Namjoon let the words settle. "You need to talk to him, not tonight, soon, or it will eat both of you alive." Taehyung's hands shook slightly as he pulled out his phone, the lock screen showing a photo from their last tour. Jungkook asleep on his shoulder, hair tousled, mouth slightly open, a piece of paper still in hand. He hadn't changed it. He never could. And now it mocked him. He turned off the phone and shoved it into his pocket, staring at the sky as the rain began, as if the world itself wept alongside him. Say it, he thought. Say what has been simmering inside you, or let it consume you whole. 2 days later, the dance studio was quiet but heavy. Sweat clung to them both after rehearsal, silence stretching like a blade. Taehyung's water bottle rolled across the floor, plastic cracking. He turned to Jungkook, eyes burning, voice shaking. "You want me to say it? Fine. I didn't know you could lie to me this easily," he accused. Jungkook flinched. "I didn't lie," he said, defensive. "Not telling me is a lie." Taehyung stepped closer. "You knew I still cared. You paraded her in front of me like none of it mattered." Jungkook's voice cracked. "What did you expect me to do? Wait for you to grow the courage to admit something never said?" The tension cut through the room, tangible, electric. "Don't you dare put this on me," Taehyung snapped, slamming a hand against the mirror, echoing across the space. Memories of Tokyo rose unbidden. "You kissed me and disappeared for 3 weeks, then pretended it never happened." Now you're marrying her like it never mattered. You think I forgot that night? Guilt washed over Jungkook, his voice trembling. I never wanted to lose you, but you loved the idea of me, Taehyung interrupted, voice raw. Not the messy, broken reality. I gave you all of me and you chose easy. Jungkook staggered, the weight of her presence of years unspoken crashing down on him. You loved me, he asked quietly. Not for the past, Taehyung said, inching forward, but I'm telling you now because it's not too late, not for the truth. You need to know what you're walking away from. Jungkook's voice faltered, trembling with raw honesty. I stayed awake replaying every moment I could have held you close, so why her? Because she doesn't know half of who you are, Taehyung whispered, voice breaking. Silence fell heavy and suffocating until Jungkook admitted softly, almost regretfully, you're too much. I loved you, maybe I still do, but I couldn't survive you. You didn't even try, Taehyung countered, a single, searing truth. The room seemed to collapse around them, but within that collapse the truth shone brightest. The door slammed behind Taehyung as he stormed out, rain soaking his hair, slicking down his jacket. Every step felt heavier than the last, as if the city itself weighed down on him. The neon lights reflected off puddles, blurred streaks of color dancing across the asphalt like memories he couldn't escape. Jungkook's presence lingered, an invisible chain wrapped around his chest, dragging him backward even as he tried to move forward. He stopped, leaning against a brick wall, shivering, not from the cold but from the raw ache of betrayal and unspoken longing. 2 days after the awards show, they found themselves alone in the dance studio again. The silence between them was thick, each exhale heavy with memories neither could fully claim. Jungkook wiped his damp hair from his face, staring at Taehyung like a man cornered yet defiant. I didn't think you'd react like that, Jungkook said softly, voice tight. Taehyung's eyes flared, fierce and bright, cutting through the shadows of their shared history. React? You paraded her in front of me, Jungkook. That's not a reaction. That's a declaration of everything I've been too scared to admit, he shot back. The air quivered with tension, unspoken truths curling like smoke around them. Every past smile, every brush of fingers backstage, every night Taehyung had spent awake imagining a life with Jungkook now screamed in the silence. I didn't know what you wanted, Jungkook admitted, the words barely escaping. You always knew, Taehyung hissed. You always knew and you chose easy. The word hung between them, sharp, unyielding. They moved closer, drawn by gravity of years spent orbiting one another. You loved me, Jungkook asked, voice trembling. I still do, Taehyung whispered, the vulnerability of it almost a physical blow. Jungkook's eyes darkened with guilt, regret, longing all at once. Then why her? The question was barely audible, but it struck with the force of a hurricane. Taehyung's hands clenched into fists. Because she doesn't carry the weight you do, he said, voice ragged. She doesn't know your scars or my nights of dreaming about you. She never will. Jungkook's chest heaved, the truth crashing over him in waves too sharp to contain. I can't, he started, then stopped. The words felt hollow. I'm marrying her, he admitted, voice breaking. Taehyung stepped back, the space between them a chasm filled with all they'd lost. If you do, don't invite me, he said quietly, each syllable weighted. I won't survive it. Jungkook's face twisted, torn between obligation and desire. I can't just erase her, he said, and even he sounded disgusted by the excuse. But you're still dreaming about him, Taehyung said softly, piercing through Jungkook's defenses. The silence that followed was brutal. Days later, Jungkook sat alone in his hotel room, phone in hand. News of the backstage encounter leaked quickly, rumors spreading faster than wildfire. Tabloids twisted their every glance into scandal, every whispered word into betrayal. What do I do? He whispered to no one, heart hammering in his chest. He knew the world demanded an answer, and yet the only person whose truth mattered was. Across town, sat in his apartment staring blankly at his phone, thumbs hovering over social media apps. Messages poured in, some supportive, some cruel, some unnervingly intimate. You ruined him, you're selfish. You're brave, you're a coward, you deserve him. Every notification felt like a slap, every mention a hammer striking his chest. He tossed the phone aside and buried his face in his hands. The room smelled faintly of jasmine tea, a scent had always left behind. It was both comforting and torturous. Knock at the door jolted him upright. His closest friend stood there, eyes soft beneath the mask. "You look like hell," he said, stepping in without waiting for an invitation. He set down a bag of food, warm, comforting. Voice was dull. "I'm not hungry," didn't argue. "You're going to eat and you're going to talk, because if you don't, I will call your mom." Cracked a faint smile, but it was a ghost of humor. They sat together in silence, the city humming outside, the weight of the world pressing in. "I think I ruined everything," admitted finally, voice barely above a whisper. "No," said gently. "You lit the match. The fire was already there. You didn't ruin it, you revealed it." The words sank in, heavy but true. Fingers trembled as he reached for his phone, thumb hovering over contact. He wanted to fight, to claim, to confess, but the fear of pain, of heartbreak, still lingered. "What now?" he asked. Leaned back, eyes thoughtful. "Do you love him?" The simplicity of the question cut through everything. Eyes glistened. "I never stopped." "Then fight," said. "But fight for truth, not to prove a point. Fight because it's worth it." Meanwhile, across the city, prepared for a press conference. Cameras, microphones, reporters packed like a storm ready to break. The world demanded clarity, demanded spectacle. He stepped to the podium, shoulders tight, jaw clenched, eyes scanning the crowd. "I owe an apology," he began, voice firm but trembling, "not for falling in love, but for hiding it. I didn't betray anyone. I did hurt people, though, people I care about deeply. And I take full responsibility. I am in love with Park. And I will not hide it again." The room erupted. Flashbulbs stung, questions screamed. The world knew. Finally, the truth stood in the open. Watching from his apartment, felt tears streaming down his face. The words, once secret, now resonated across the city. For the first time, the love he'd carried silently, painfully, was no longer invisible. It was real. It was public. It was terrifying. And it was theirs. The walls that had separated them, the lies, the fears, the half-truths, crumbled under the weight of honesty. Fallout was immediate. Bang PD and the boardroom erupted into chaos. Sponsors threatened withdrawals, legal advisors panicked over contracts, PR heads scrambled to contain the storm. "What the hell was that?" Bang PD demanded, voice like a hammer striking glass. "It's #1 in 23 countries. Engagement, irrelevant. Public support is surging, backlash is burning, and you know what? They don't care," a manager whispered, eyes wide. Presence entered like a silent hurricane. No mask, no hoodie, raw emotion in every step. "If you're going to punish him," he said, "punish me too. You're angry because he told the truth alone. Ask why he had to." The boardroom fell silent. Phones buzzed incessantly. The storm of public opinion collided with the raw, unfiltered truth of two men finally claiming their love. Entered, jaw tight, pale as hand found his. "I won't take it back," he said, voice low. "Whatever comes, I'll face it, but I won't erase the truth for your convenience." Bang PD exhaled slowly. "Then prepare to bleed for it." That night, candles glowed dimly in apartment. Soft jazz hummed, but the mood was heavy, not romantic. They sat cross-legged, facing each other, noodles gone cold. Voice was quiet. "What if we made a mistake?" Fingers intertwined with his. "Then we walk through it together," he said simply. "And if we get burned," pressed his palm to, unwavering. "Then we heal each other. I'm not letting go this time." The truth at last had been spoken, but the world outside still roared, hungry to consume them. The morning after the press conference, the city was electric with whispers. Every news channel, every social media feed pulsed with speculation. Scrolled through the headlines with a mix of anxiety and pride. "BTS declares love for publicly. Fans react wildly," one read. Another screamed, "Chaos at as secret romance goes public." Chest tightened with every click. The world was watching, judging, dissecting, and yet the fear that had chained him for so long began to loosen, thread by thread. He arrived at the studio, the early sunlight streaking across the streets like liquid gold. Was already there, stretching, the kind of quiet focus he always had before practice. Their eyes met, a brief flicker of relief, understanding, and the unspoken acknowledgement that the past days had changed them forever. "You okay?" asked softly. Exhaled, tension lingering in his shoulders. "I will be," he said, voice steady but with a shadow of doubt. Nodded. They didn't need more words. The connection was palpable, electric, a tether binding them stronger than ever. The rehearsal began, music echoing through the spacious studio. Every movement was precise, but their eyes kept finding each other, a subtle choreography layered atop the official one. Caught hand once, brushing it lightly, a silent reassurance. Returned the gesture, their fingers lingering, communicating what words could not. For a brief moment, the world outside ceased to exist. Only the rhythm of the music, the sync of their bodies, and the bond that had fear and expectation remained. After practice, they retreated to the rooftop, the city sprawled beneath them, buzzing and alive. Leaned against the railing, the wind whipping through his hair, cold and sharp, clearing his mind. Stood beside him, shoulders squared but eyes uncertain. "They're going to attack us," said, voice low, almost a whisper. "The media, the contracts, the fans who feel betrayed, it's coming." Gaze swept the horizon, sun glinting off distant skyscrapers. "Let them," he said firmly. "We've been hiding for too long. This is truth, and truth can't be silenced." Later that evening, their phones rang incessantly. Calls from managers, legal teams, PR agencies, each demanding explanation, mitigation, control. Ignored them, letting take the calls, knowing he'd need the guidance but also wanting to see the unfiltered chaos of their choice. He watched as face hardened with resolve, the young idol forced to navigate a storm larger than any stage performance. Realized then that the courage he admired wasn't just in admitting love publicly. It was in standing firm while the world threatened to collapse around him. They sat in an apartment later, the skyline glowing softly through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Hand found again, fingers interlocking instinctively. "Do you think we can survive this?" asked quietly. Eyes met his, unwavering. "We have to," he said simply, "because nothing else matters if we don't fight for what's real." Felt the weight lift slightly, though the anxiety lingered like a shadow at the edge of the room. They ate dinner in silence, each bite heavy with thought, each glance heavy with unspoken emotion. The next few days were a blur of media appearances, fan reactions, and management meetings. Some were supportive, some hostile, but the majority were captivated, and found themselves at the center of a storm they hadn't invited but couldn't escape. Fans flooded social media with messages, fan art, heartfelt letters, and petitions. The hashtags trended globally, love unhidden. The support was overwhelming, a tidal wave of affirmation in a sea of scrutiny. Amid the chaos, they found brief moments of respite. A quiet coffee shop, a secluded park, a late-night walk under flickering streetlights. These moments were fleeting, but they reminded of why he had endured the fear, the secrecy, and the heartbreak. Was there, real and present, offering smiles, warmth, and the kind of closeness that words couldn't capture. They laughed quietly over small jokes, shared inside stories, and allowed themselves to simply be together, away from cameras, rumors, and expectations. One evening, as the sun dipped below the skyline, casting the city in shades of orange and violet, Taehyung found himself standing in the balcony, staring at the lights reflecting off the river. Jungkook joined him silently, his hand finding Taehyung's. "Do you ever regret it?" Jungkook asked, voice barely above the wind. Taehyung shook his head, letting out a soft laugh. "Not for a second," he replied. "Even if the world hates us, even if everything burns down. This us was worth every second of waiting." Jungkook squeezed his hand, a silent promise passing between them. But the world wouldn't let them rest so easily. Rumors escalated, critics sharpened their pens, tabloids ran sensational headlines, and management insisted on formal statements, contracts, and PR strategies. "You're reckless," one executive scolded, packing behind glass doors in Hybe headquarters. "This is bigger than your feelings, bigger than any fandom or campaign. People will remember this forever and not necessarily kindly." Taehyung had listened, nodding, but deep down he knew they couldn't go back. The risk, the fear, the potential for heartbreak, it was all worth the truth finally spoken. Meanwhile, the fans orchestrated their own campaigns. Messages of support flooded stadiums, airplanes displayed banners as they traveled, and social media posts went viral faster than anything BTS had ever experienced. Taehyung and Jungkook saw the impact firsthand. The world was watching, yes, But more importantly, hearts were shifting. People were beginning to understand, to empathize, to root for love that had been hidden for too long. Despite the support, Taehyung couldn't ignore the tension creeping into private moments. They argued, sometimes quietly, sometimes heatedly, over schedules, over interviews, over how much to reveal and how much to protect. Each confrontation left bruises, not on skin but on hearts. Yet through every tense exchange, every tearful discussion, every moment of frustration, their bond deepened. They were learning together how to navigate not just fame and expectations, but love under the harshest scrutiny imaginable. One night, after an argument over a misinterpreted comment in an interview, Taehyung stormed out, walking aimlessly through the neon-lit streets. Jungkook followed after a few minutes, heart pounding. "Stop," he called, catching up. Taehyung turned, rain beginning to fall softly, reflecting the city lights in diamonds on the pavement. "Stop what?" Taehyung shot back, eyes glinting with emotion. "Fighting with me. Stop questioning us." Jungkook reached out, grabbing his shoulder. "I'm scared," Taehyung admitted, voice breaking. "I'm scared the world will take you away. I'm scared we're too small for something so big." Jungkook pulled him into an embrace, holding him tight against the storm. "We'll face it together," he whispered. "No one can take us apart unless we let them. We're stronger than the chaos." The rain fell harder, washing over them, mingling with tears and relief. In that moment the city noise faded, the world receded, and only the two of them remained, soaked, trembling but unbroken. Every risk, every fear, every heartache had led to this. And though the road ahead promised battles, scrutiny, and heartbreak, they had each other, and that was enough. For now, it had to be enough. The days that followed were a whirlwind of both exhilaration and tension. Taehyung found himself navigating a world that had suddenly grown far too bright and far too loud. Every step outside their shared reality felt amplified under the glare of scrutiny. Every camera lens, every whispering reporter, every trending hashtag reminded him that nothing about their love was private anymore. And yet there was a strange, thrilling sense of liberation in it all, a freedom he hadn't known he craved until now. For the first time, he could breathe without the weight of secrets pressing against his chest. Jungkook, for his part, carried the storm with a steadier hand, though the strain was clear in the quiet moments. He had always been the composed one, the anchor in turbulent waters, but even he was human. There were nights he would sit awake in the apartment, fingers tapping rhythmically on the glass of his balcony, staring at the city below as if it held some secret answer. Taehyung would watch him from the bedroom doorway, silently admiring that quiet strength, and then cross the room to slip his hand into Jungkook, grounding them both in the simplicity of touch. Words weren't always necessary. Sometimes a touch, a glance, a breath shared between them said more than any press release or public statement ever could. But reality intruded faster than either of them anticipated. Jungkook's family had caught wind of the media frenzy. At first, it was indirect, calls from uncles, messages from distant cousins, the subtle judgment of friends who had long observed Jungkook from afar. Then the conversations became direct and unavoidable. One late afternoon, Taehyung accompanied Jungkook to his parents' house, the quiet suburban street both comforting and intimidating. Jungkook's mother opened the door, her expression a blend of warmth and wariness. Taehyung could feel the tension radiating off her as she studied him from head to toe, her gaze lingering, searching. "You're Taehyung," she said softly, as if testing the name on her tongue. Taehyung nodded, offering the kind of small, respectful smile he reserved for strangers whose opinion mattered. "It's nice to finally meet you," he said. His voice was calm, steady, but inside, a whirlwind of nerves churned. Jungkook's father arrived a moment later, less overtly judgmental but equally assessing, his silence demanding answers Taehyung hadn't yet been sure he could provide. The family dinner that followed was a delicate dance of words, glances, and understated tension. Taehyung found himself carefully choosing each phrase, each smile, hopping to convey sincerity without overstepping boundaries he hadn't fully understood. Over dinner, Jungkook's mother probed gently, her questions thoughtful yet pointed. "How long have you known each other?" she asked, her tone casual but her eyes sharp. "Years," Taehyung replied, meeting her gaze. "We've been through a lot together, and we care for each other deeply." The sincerity in his voice seemed to reach her, though not completely. Taehyung could sense the hesitation, the protective instinct of a mother who wanted to shield her child from potential heartbreak. Yet, for the first time, he also sensed the beginning of understanding, a bridge forming between the past skepticism and a future possibility. The conversation shifted to lighter topics: music, travel, shared memories of childhood. Taehyung leaned into the stories Jungkook recounted with a quiet amusement, laughing softly at moments only they would fully appreciate. He noticed how Jungkook's parents softened as the evening progressed, their laughter more genuine, their questions less guarded. By the time they left, the air had shifted. The storm hadn't completely cleared, but there was promise in the faint silver lining. Even with family tentative approval, the public reaction remained relentless. Social media posts varied from supportive declarations to scathing critiques. Fans split into factions, each arguing with fervor over whether BTS idols should expose their personal lives so openly. News outlets debated the ramifications of idol relationships, some portraying Taehyung and Jungkook as brave and revolutionary, others as reckless and irresponsible. The constant scrutiny began to weigh heavily on both of them, particularly on Taehyung, who had long struggled with the balance between personal happiness and public expectation. Yet amidst the chaos, there were moments that reminded them why the risk had been worth it. Late-night calls from fans who shared their own stories of love, courage, and authenticity brought them unexpected comfort. Handwritten letters from overseas arrived in stacks at their agency, each one a testament to the impact their honesty had on countless lives. Taehyung held one letter to his chest, tears pricking at the corners of his eyes. "They get it," he whispered to Jungkook. "They understand why we can't hide anymore." Jungkook nodded, squeezing his hand, a quiet promise passing between them. "We endure, we resist, we thrive." The couple found their own sanctuary in small, private routines. Morning coffee on the balcony, the scent of rain-soaked streets wafting in through open windows. Late-night drives with no destination, just the hum of the engine and shared laughter. Quiet evenings at home, cooking together, the simple act of feeding each other a small, mundane meal transformed into an intimate ritual. These ordinary moments became the glue holding them together, a reminder that love wasn't always about grand declarations or public approval. It was also about small, unremarkable gestures that felt monumental in their shared world. And yet, not all challenges could be mitigated by private peace. The tension escalated when the identity of Jungkook's future wife, long rumored and now partially confirmed, surfaced in the media. Speculation ran rampant. Who would step into the role of lifelong partner alongside a global superstar? Taehyung felt a strange combination of curiosity and trepidation. The reports hinted at someone from within the industry, someone Taehyung knew tangentially, someone whose presence he would soon have to reckon with personally. When they finally met, the encounter was surreal. The woman was poised, confident, yet undeniably warm. She extended a hand with a smile that was both knowing and gentle. Taehyung took it, feeling the awkward tension that came with new introductions amplified by the weight of public perception. Conversation began with cautious pleasantries, then shifted to shared experiences in music, life, and the strange intersection where professional and personal lives collided. Taehyung realized that beneath the media-crafted narratives, she was human, complex, compassionate, and carrying her own burdens of expectation and scrutiny. The meeting ended on an ambiguous note. There was no confrontation, no overt tension, yet the unspoken understanding lingered. All three of them were navigating a labyrinth of emotions, responsibilities, and loyalties. Taehyung knew that moving forward would require careful negotiation, not just with Jungkook, but with the networks of people whose lives intertwined with theirs. The subsequent days were a delicate balance of rehearsals, interviews, and personal moments. Every public appearance became a carefully choreographed exercise in poise and authenticity. Taehyung learned to maintain composure under the unrelenting gaze of cameras, while also carving out spaces of vulnerability with Jungkook behind closed doors. They learned the importance of setting boundaries, of communicating openly, of protecting their private lives even as the world clamored for intrusion. Amidst all this, Taehyung began documenting the experience privately, notes, sketches, reflections, an emotional archive of their journey. In these pages, he confronted fear, doubt, exhilaration, and hope. He wrote about the first moment he truly saw Jungkook, the realization of feelings that had been quietly growing for years, and the courage it took to bring them into the light. He wrote about family, media scrutiny, and the bittersweet complexities of public love. Each word was a testament to endurance, to truth, and to a love that refused to be constrained by expectation or fear. One night, as the city slumbered under a blanket of quiet, Taehyung and Jungkook sat on the balcony, the skyline a tapestry of lights and shadows. The air was thick with the scent of rain from earlier, the cool breeze carrying distant echoes of life below. Taehyung leaned against Jungkook, letting his head rest lightly on his shoulder. They didn't need words. The silence spoke volumes, a declaration of solidarity, of perseverance, of love unbroken by circumstance. Outside, the world raged on. Inside, their hearts beat in synchronized rhythm, an unspoken vow that whatever storms may come, they would face them together. And as Taehyung gazed at the horizon, he realized that seeing Jungkook's future wife hadn't diminished his love, it had sharpened it. The complexities of life, the inevitability of challenges, and the intrusion of the outside world had all become tests of resilience. And in passing these tests, their bond had strengthened, becoming not just love, but a defiant declaration that their hearts could endure anything. The following weeks felt like walking a tightrope stretched high above an unforgiving cityscape. Every step forward seemed precarious, every glance backward a reminder of the ever-watchful eyes tracking their lives. Taehyung found himself caught in a whirlwind of emotions: exhilaration at the love he shared with Jungkook, anxiety over the scrutiny of the world, and an odd mixture of admiration and wariness toward Jungkook's future wife. Each day brought new challenges, some subtle, some overt, and Taehyung had to constantly remind himself to breathe, to exist in the moment rather than be swallowed by the ever-present pressure. The media's interest in them had grown into an insatiable beast. Headlines were no longer neutral, they were narratives, sometimes flattering, sometimes insinuating, always calculated to draw attention. Taehyung and Jungkook's hidden lives revealed. What we know now, one article blared, accompanied by carefully cropped photographs and speculative commentary. Taehyung stared at the screen, the familiar pang of frustration rising in his chest. He had grown accustomed to public scrutiny, yet the intensity of these reports felt invasive, almost personal. He and Jungkook had shared love in private, and now it was being parsed, analyzed, and dissected for mass consumption. Despite the chaos, their relationship remained a sanctuary. The small apartment they shared became a fortress of normalcy amidst the storm. Mornings were for coffee and laughter, evenings for quiet walks in near-empty streets. They learned to shield each other from the barrage of external pressures, communicating through gestures, glances, and unspoken reassurance. One night, after a particularly grueling day filled with back-to-back interviews, Taehyung found himself collapsed on the sofa, exhaustion heavy in his limbs. Jungkook sat beside him, fingers brushing lightly against his temple, whispering words that anchored Taehyung in a sense of calm. "We're okay," Jungkook said simply, a phrase repeated often, but always carrying the weight of sincerity. Yet even in these private moments, the presence of Jungkook's future wife lingered in the periphery of Taehyung's mind. They had maintained a polite, cordial relationship, but the world insisted on framing it as a triangle, a drama to be devoured by gossip-hungry fans. Social media speculation was relentless, with hashtags trending daily, some supportive, some cruel, and some outright accusatory. Taehyung had learned to scroll past most of it, focusing instead on the tangible love he experienced daily. But some moments were unavoidable. A viral comment here, a misinterpreted post there. Each one tested his patience. Each one demanded resilience. Then came the first public event where all three, Taehyung, Jungkook, and the future wife, were inevitably present. It was a gala celebrating music and philanthropy, a glittering night of lights, cameras, and carefully choreographed interactions. As they arrived, Taehyung could feel the stares, the murmurs, the flashbulbs punctuating the evening like staccato gunfire. He held Jungkook's hand tightly, grounding himself in the tangible connection that no camera could capture, no headline could distort. The initial introduction was formal, polished. The future wife smiled, extending her hand in a gesture that was both respectful and disarmingly genuine. Taehyung shook it, nodding the calm confidence behind her eyes. Conversation flowed smoothly, the surface calm concealing the undercurrent of tension that both he and Jungkook felt. They moved through the crowd, navigated obligatory small talk, and occasionally shared quiet, private glances that reinforced their unity amidst the chaos. But it was during the speeches that the situation became particularly delicate. An industry journalist, known for her probing questions, directed her attention toward them. It's fascinating to see two iconic figures, Taehyung and Jungkook, navigate their personal lives in the public eye. How do you manage your relationship when so many are watching? Her words were measured, but the undertone was unmistakable. Taehyung's heart tightened. He glanced at Jungkook, who offered a reassuring nod. Taking a deep breath, Taehyung responded with clarity and poise. It's not always easy, but love isn't about ease. It's about commitment, understanding, and support. That's what we have. The answer, simple yet powerful, drew murmurs of approval from some, disbelief from others. But Taehyung felt a quiet satisfaction. He had spoken truthfully, without hiding or apologizing. As the night wore on, the event became a study in balance. Public appearances, handshakes, photo ops, all meticulously choreographed. Yet beneath the surface, a subtle battle played out. The unspoken navigation of personal boundaries, the negotiation of respect and understanding between Taehyung and the woman who was soon to become an integral part of Jungkook's life. They were learning slowly that coexistence required patience, empathy, and a willingness to confront discomfort without letting it fester into conflict. The following morning brought reflection. Taehyung sat at his desk, pen in hand, pouring thoughts onto paper. He wrote about the delicate equilibrium between love and duty, the intricate dance of public persona and private emotion. He wrote about the unexpected relief he felt when he realized that jealousy, though natural, did not have to dominate his heart. Instead, love could expand to accommodate respect, admiration, and even friendship. He wrote about Jungkook, about the unwavering loyalty and understanding that defined their bond, and about the realization that challenges, no matter how daunting, could strengthen rather than fracture their connection. Work continued, as relentless as ever. Tour, rehearsals, interviews, every commitment a reminder of their visibility. But amidst the intensity, they carved out moments of authenticity. Late-night studio sessions became sacred spaces for creativity and shared laughter. Morning runs, quiet breakfast rituals, even the occasional drive through empty city streets. These moments were their lifeline, a reminder that outside scrutiny could not penetrate the fortress of trust and intimacy they had built. Yet external pressures were unrelenting. Fans and media speculated endlessly about future developments, every encounter with Jungkook's future wife dissected for hidden meaning. Taehyung found solace in conversation with fellow artists who had experienced similar scrutiny. Their words were comforting, practical, and grounding. "Focus on your truth," one said. "Don't let speculation dictate your feelings. You know your heart, trust it." Taehyung repeated these words to himself like a mantra, letting them anchor his perspective.